Hey there. Thanks for pressing play on this episode of the Brassy Broadcast. I'm your host, Jen Eads. I'm a musician, a student of the creative universe, and a curious girl full of questions. When I'm not on Facebook serenading folks live from the loo, I'm also the HBIC, head broad in charge at the Brassy Broadcasting Company, where I help do-gooders of all kinds create and produce podcasts and other audio content. And speaking of podcasts, if you're looking for a home to host your podcast, check out my friends at Libsyn. That is where the Brassy Broadcast lives. And if you use the code BRASSY, you will get the current month and next month of hosting for free. So you can check them out at libsyn.com. That is LIBSYN.com. Oh, and if you're asking yourself, did she just say live from the loo? What the heck is that? You can check it out on my Jen Eads YouTube channel, and that is JENEDDS. Now let's talk about the episode you're about to enjoy. My friend Amy Woodall is making a return appearance to the show, and I'm going to put a link to her previous guest spot in episode 28 in the show notes. I promise you're going to want to check it out. The title of that episode is How Not to Throat Punch Your Bandmates and Other Productive Communication Strategies. We keep on that communication track in this conversation, and we relate a lot of it to that band or artist dynamic. But the truths that Amy shares can be applied to any relationship. Now, some highlights to listen for in this episode. How to get rid of your head trash. Action steps to getting out of your comfort zone. Fear of looking stupid. And my personal favorite, the drama triangle. Now enjoy my conversation with Amy Woodall. Today, Amy Woodall is back to talk to us about communication. Amy, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Second time.
I know. You're a guest of honor now.
I know. I feel like I should have a picture in the studio hanging up.
I think you will. We'll put you next to Velvet Elvis.
I like it.
So Amy is here to enlighten us about communication, the key to the world. And if you missed Amy's last appearance on the show, you can catch that in episode 28. All right, Amy, we're talking today about musicians and how we hate to think about ourselves as a product because we're artists. And I know that you work with a variety of clients, and I don't think it matters whether you're selling a product, a service, or a concert experience. It's all about communication.
Yeah, this is true. It's so funny, no matter, what department I'm working in or the type of person I'm working with or company, everyone has a hard time seeing themselves as salespeople. I'm not a sales trainer, by the way. That's not my role, but I think we've all got to be very mindful about how we're presenting ourselves and, communicating with one another.
What do you think is key to that?
It really is about creating a strategy. I think it's hard to do anything well if you don't know how the hell you're going to do it. It's like, I might want to go to New York this afternoon and I could just drive aimlessly and eventually one day I might show up in New York. But if I don't have a strategy of how I'm going to get there or a map of how it's going to go, it's going to be a whole lot harder. And that really is the case, I think whether you're in a band or a business or a relationship.
So where do we start in creating that strategy?
The good news is it's probably already there and you might be doing it already on accident and not know it. So I think doing things intentionally are really good. One of the great places to start is think of the best experience you have had, especially, if we're talking along the lines of bands. Think about a venue, a concert that went really well. Feedback was great. It was easy to work with that person. And how did you get there? If you start at the end and then sort of work back and say, okay, we did some things right. How the heck did we do it? And how do we duplicate that? Chances are you have that information already.
All right. Great place to start. Now, before we actually started this conversation, when we were just having a little hangout and some coffee, we talked about money.
Money. We were talking a little bit about money weakness. I asked you if you felt like, people's beliefs ever played a role into how valuable they felt like the band might be whenever negotiating or communicating, with a potential venue? I'm sure that happens a lot where, maybe they're sort of like, I'm afraid to ask for money. A lot of times it's subconscious. There is fear of, being rejected or someone even coming back and doing the negotiation and say, well, will you guys take this much per hour, or whatever the case might be. So our money beliefs can weigh pretty heavy on the success.
Well, and I know as musicians, we get a lot of, hey, will you come play my bar for exposure? Mm-hmm. That's always my favorite. How do you suggest working around that and getting out of that mindset that we are done with that? That's not where we want to play, because if we start doing that, that's going to be all we get. That's basically what we're going to attract. So how do we get our mind wrapped around, no, we are providing a service. We are bringing people into this venue. Our music's really good. So we've got a good product. We've got a good customer experience and a good fan experience. So how do we get that trash out of our head?
So a couple of ways. First off, I think it's really good to do a powwow with the band, get everybody together and discuss where do we think we're valuable, and kind of create that list together so everybody can get on the same playing field. Because last thing that you want to do is, a few of you agree that, hey, we're worth money now. And then all of a sudden Susie goes and she's like, oh, my cousin owns a bar and I told her we'd do it for free, and then it's like, really, we decided we weren't doing this. So you need everybody who's going to be game and discuss what's so great about us. Why do we deserve to get paid? And not only that, how much do we think we're worth? And if we relate this to a business aspect, it seems silly. If someone were to come to me and be like, hey, can you come do training for my company for exposure? I'd be like, that's really super sweet, but my kids like to eat 3 times a day, and my CPS would take them away if I chose not to. And so I just think I know that I'm valuable and what I bring is valuable. Mm-hmm. And it makes the company better and makes them look good, and it makes them more money when they learn what I have. And it's the same if you think about it with a band. So if you are bringing a good time, people are going to hang out. They're going to want to buy more drinks. You're able to make them money. So that comes with a cost. Experience comes, with a cost. And then recreating those beliefs in your head. So now that you've decided, hey, we're valuable, how do we really believe it? I am a big fan of journaling. I know that I'm just big into journaling. I'm big into law of attraction stuff. And you have to recreate whatever the head trash is into a positive form. So if your thought is people are not going to want to pay us, what's a crazy amount for a band?
$1,500, okay, maybe. I mean, it's all over the board, but let's just say $1,500. If you're making nothing, $1,500 is a lot of money.
Okay. So, and maybe the head trash is bars don't have that kind of money to spend. Or maybe the head trash is nobody's going to want to pay us that kind of money. Whatever the self-limiting belief is, it has to be rewritten and it has to be reaffirmed. And so write it down as if it's true. We are a $2,500 band. We easily get $2,500 gigs. Bars call us constantly and pay us $2,500, whatever the case might be, just write it down. You have to, if you don't believe it, it's never going to happen. It just is not, it's not going to happen. It's the way that the beliefs work. There's actually like a formula to belief and how we shift that.
Really?
So it is not how we feel that determines how we act. It's how we act that determines how we feel. So I'll give you an example, exercise, because we can all understand how much it sucks. I mean, it's not fun. And I have tried to get on this, journey to wellness and health because I'm getting older and my metabolism hates me now. And I still love beer. So it's just a bad combination. And my belief has been exercising sucks.
Yes.
Cardio sucks. I only run if there's free beer or snakes. And I run towards one and away from the other. And so that has really been my belief. I've had to make myself exercise, do it anyway, and in order to shift those beliefs. And because I have done that, now that does determine I didn't want to do it, but when I'm done, I feel good. And then that feeling of feeling good and accomplished kind of helps reformulate that belief of it's not so bad. it's not so hard. It's worth it. And so even the next time when I don't want to do it, I still take the action. And then my attitude starts to shift. So actions actually shift our attitude, not the other way around.
So are you saying that because what'd you say, 16 days into your
16 days in a row, I have worked out. It might as well be like 582 days in a row. Right. It's kind of a big deal.
Are you to the point yet where if you skipped a day, do you think you'd miss it?
Yeah, I know. Here's the other thing we have to know about ourselves as human beings. We have to really know ourselves. I am a very weak person. So if I skipped a day, it would just be done. I would be like, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes. And so I think in general, we've got to be, disciplined and just know where our weaknesses are.
So going back to the whole limiting beliefs and money, because that is huge. I think a lot of that is related to our comfort zone. Maybe we've been really comfortable playing for exposure or playing for beer because maybe we don't think that we are worth that. We might not be worth more than a 6-pack. I don't know. I'm sure somebody has told me along the way that I was lucky to be a 6-pack of PBR at one point. But that all comes back to comfort zone. So how do you get those folks in the band or in your business even on board with helping ease them out of their comfort zone? Because nothing's ever going to change if you don't get out of that. So How do you help them get out of that and get on board?
Well, so two-parter here. In the beginning, when this is forming, is everyone on the same page of what the goals and dreams are for the band? Or is it, I think we have a tendency to just take things sort of one experience at a time and just wing it without saying, ultimately, here's the dream and the destination and here's where we want to go. And is everybody on board with that? And I kind of liken this to a marriage a little bit. How often do people get married and they don't talk about what they want their lives to look like 50 years from now or 20 years from now, or what are the life goals? And when they do, sometimes it's scary of how different they are. And they're like, oh God, we're in this life together and we don't even want the same life. I think when you're in any sort of relationship and, bands are a piece of this, you have got to have that conversation in the beginning because other people will and could potentially hold you back because they don't see themselves wanting to go anywhere different. They are in their comfort zone and they refuse to move. So it's hard to get anybody to move if they're not in with the vision.
Absolutely.
So vision is first. Second parter of moving out of our comfort zone. We were talking a little bit about this. I think most of us human beings suffer from something we call FOLS, F-O-L-S, fear of looking stupid.
Oh, yeah. Guilty.
Yeah. Fear of looking stupid. And that holds us back from trying new things all the time because, well, if I try something new and I suck at it, then I'm going to look stupid. We teach, one of my favorite things to teach in the customer service training that I do is IR theory, which is something that it's a methodology from Sandler training. And it says that we have got to separate our identity from our roles. So who we are as human beings has nothing to do with how it is that we react or how successful we are in our roles. And our roles are everything from like band member to mother, father, wife, husband, sister, brother, friend, all of those things that we kind of take on in life. We can suck in one of those roles and still be just fine as a human being. We've got to just know that. And unless we know that to be true, it's really hard to push out of our comfort zone because we're driven by fear.
So we should probably write that in our journal.
Yeah, write it in your journal. Go out and buy a pretty pink journal.
We also talk a lot on this show about brassy, bold moves. So how do you even start that conversation to get buy-in with the band or the business partners or the people on your team? That if you're like, hey, they're going to think I'm nuts. But when you feel passionately about something and you know that it can work, and you just want them to try it, how do you go about framing that and getting them to say, yeah, maybe she's not completely crazy?
Okay, so I think we were talking about this upstairs a little bit. And the first part of success is, us just sort of getting our mind right and knowing that when we go in, we have to be in a certain frame of mind where we are willing to defend, but not in a way that is attacking either. Okay. Because that can happen when we're really passionate about something and someone poo-poos on it. It's like they called our baby ugly and we're ready to fight.
Right.
So going in with the idea of, okay, I will potentially get pushback. And when that happens, what am I going to do? Strategy is key. Mm-hmm. And I use upfront contract a lot. It's a terminology, another one of those that we use in training that says, okay, how do we just sort of set the stage and the ground rules? Mm-hmm. So if you're my kid and I'm going to lend you my car, we're probably going to set rules for how that happens, right? I'm going to give you the car and here's what I expect and here's what time to be home. I mean, there's some ground rules set.
Yes.
The same should be done for potentially difficult conversations. What are the ground rules? I'm going to bring something really crazy to the table. I'm telling you it's potentially crazy. My fear is you're going to shut it down. Can you promise you're going to be open to listening to it? We can discuss it back and forth. Maybe it'll change a little bit, and then we can kind of discuss what happens next. Get their piece of the ground rule so that they have buy-in, but you've got to set it up front so that you know it's not just coming in, and then what happens is it will inevitably end up personal. Mm-hmm. It starts out as, hey, I have this big idea to do something great for the band. And then it's like, you always do this. Then it's like the finger pointing and like, then we're attacking and, you're holding us back. And I can just kind of see it's not good. So set the ground rules.
So that takes us to the blame game then.
Yes.
Right?
Ooh, the blame game.
Ooh, talk to us about that.
There is, I don't know if you have ever heard of it. It's a term called Karpman's triangle. Not Cartman,
Not Cartman?
Not Cartman from South Park.
Like, Mom!
Yeah, but Karpman's triangle. It talks about the cycle of being a victim. It's actually called the drama triangle.
Oh, nice.
Karpman's drama triangle.
That's a good band name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Drama triangle.
Yeah.
So there are 3 parts that you can choose to play within the drama triangle. It can be victim, which is, it's never my fault. It's always someone else's fault. Poor me, poor me. Everyone attacks me. It can be persecutor, which is the blamer of it's your fault that you're this, you're that, sort of the finger pointer. Mm-hmm. Or you can be the rescuer, which is the person who just chooses to diffuse the situation. They're not going to get engaged in finger pointing blame, and they're going to just, neutralize the situation. We have a choice in that. Mm-hmm. We have a choice. I think when we're in heated situations, we just sort of let our mouths take over and our brains take a back seat. And that's really dangerous because, and especially depending on your personality, because there are a lot of things that our mouths say that we're like, oh God, did that just come out?
Has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
No, I'm shocked.
I do remember several instances that I could think, yeah, for sure, where my mouth said something before my brain even thought it. It's kind of scary where like you're taken aback and you're like, well, did I just say that? My God, it came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So be the rescuer, diffuse the situation. I know it feels good to blame and finger point sometimes, but it will never create resolution, at least not long-term resolution. It's all very temporary. And then the next time something small happens, it's right back to the same types of arguments.
What's a step that we can take to try to diffuse that a little bit and just dial it back when it starts getting heated?
Oh God, so many ways to go about this. I'm trying to think of how to give you the most concise, information. I won't get into ego states, but I do think that that's a fascinating thing to study. Ego states is sort of our emotional ego states. A simplistic way of describing that is there was a book written in the 60s called I'm Okay, You're Okay, which says there's 4 positions in life we can take, which is I'm not okay, but you're okay, which is kind of like childhood, like our grownups are big and we're intimidated. Or there's the I'm not okay, you're not okay, which is clearly teenage years because they hate themselves and everyone else.
Right.
And then there's the I'm okay, but you're not. And then finally, the best place to be is I'm okay, and so are you. So it really is a frame of mind of just choosing to say, I no longer need to blame. I don't need to finger point. I don't need to make this personal. You're okay. We can be different. You're a good human being. Remember, you're a 10 you're I-10.
Right.
And so am I. And it's good. I mean, it really is just a switch of frame of mind. If you choose to continue to be engaged in in drama, it's going to continue to happen. And by the way, just a little side note, have you ever noticed people who choose to put "I hate drama" on their social media pages?
Yes.
Are the most dramatic human beings.
Yes.
The law of attraction is always working.
Oh, that's
always
so
working.
funny.
Yeah.
Nice. You're so right about that. Like, now that I think about it, yes, I'm totally going to go through my Facebook.
If you see anyone if you even just see people who are like, "Oh, I hate drama," then unfollow them immediately because they are going to be the most dramatic human beings you've ever met.
Oh my gosh. See, more good advice. That's like bonus material. All right, Amy. So how do we create that culture within our band so that there is no drama? So I don't get home from rehearsal and all of a sudden the drummer has posted about how much she hates drama.
Okay. I feel like, and this might be stuff that we talked a little bit about in the first episode, if you go back and listen to it.
Episode 28.
Episode 28. But it is about getting on the same page and kind of going back to that, getting the band together, talking about what the goals are, also discussing if and when we have situations at hand, how are we going to agree to deal with it? When we have conflict with one another, how are we going to deal with it? So using the ground rules, idea and saying we've got to generate these rules now. So when it happens, we know how to attack them. And when somebody doesn't, kind of fall in line with what we've agreed to, you have some accountability there. That's the thing with good teams, good, atmospheres, whether it's a culture within a band, a culture within an organization, it has to be mapped out. Just like that road trip to New York, we could eventually get there, but it's probably easier if we have it mapped out. So,
well, and since you brought up accountability, let's just jump back to that. How do you hold someone accountable? So say you've set the expectation, we're going to know this song when we get back to rehearse next week. And then somebody shows up and shit, they just didn't get to it. I'm usually the one that's guilty of that. Sorry. So but say I wasn't the one that was guilty. How do I approach that to try to keep everybody accountable?
You know what? I think in that situation, what I would encourage someone else to do is to really write out how it affects them. We are always very, very aware of how other people's actions affect us. We're very rarely aware of how our actions affect other people. But once we understand it, then I really think most human beings are apologetic, and it's not intentional. They don't go out and, trying to, upset other people. They just don't have an awareness of how it affects them. So I think kind of coming together, and especially if you have that problematic band member where it's like every time we know they're going to come back and do this, you have to have that sit down and sort of the come to Jesus, if you will, but in a way that's not attacking. Because when people are attacked, they fight back. That is human nature. But in a way that says, we have got to have this discussion that what you're not understanding is when you don't do this, this is what it means for us.
I like it. No blame game.
Now,
blame game there.
Your next practice, they're going to be like, we got to sit down and talk to you, Jen.
Jen, I know we're practicing at your house, but you're out of the band.
We'll be there at 6, have cookies made.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you're practicing. So we're shifting gears again, and we're going to talk a little bit about the customer experience and viewing, just really taking a look at that and framing up how we need to look at the customer experience as a band.
It is. I think it's so cool. And I'm thankful that you've asked me to come on here, because I don't know that I would have looked at music and the dynamics of bands and all of that in the world of business. But if you look at every business principle that's out there, from marketing to customer service to, sales, culture, engagement, it all applies, to the music industry. And the more you can get strategic about it, the more you can really control that. We were talking about, because my world is customer service and teaching that program and communication, how you have so many customers to keep in mind. You've got your audience,
Mm-hmm.
you've got the venue that you're working at. They're essentially a customer, and your own band members are what we would call internal customers.
Yes.
You cannot be successful without their help. Just like in a business, if I'm working anywhere, maybe I'm in sales, but I can't, do sales appropriately if 5 other departments aren't doing their job. It's the same thing within that
or
band.
Or if they hate you.
Yeah, or if they hate you. That's right. And when we hate, is it true that when we don't like someone, we just want to make things harder on them?
I would never admit to that, but
Yeah.
it might be true.
It's so true. I was doing a training in Louisville last week. And all of these people said when we're dealing with someone like a customer who's a pain in the butt, it makes us not want to help them more. Like It's just sort of well, screw you then.
Yeah.
Huh? You want to be rude to me? Well, I'll just make your life a little bit harder.
Yeah.
I'm sure that applies in the music world too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why you have to be very nice to the sound man.
and everyone.
Yeah.
From the person at the venue, you've got to be so strategic about those interactions and knowing what you want to have happen. And when conflict happens, how are you going to handle it outside of the band? What does that look like? Because inevitably it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What is the experience you want to create for the people that show up at your concert? Having all of these things already written out, of course, things happen that you can't control, but it's the screw ups that teach us how to do it right next time.
Right.
If you think about like the mecca of customer experience, Disney World.
Uh-huh.
First of all, they must be doing something right because it costs like you're going to drop $5,000 to take your family there. And that's, if you're getting like the value package, essentially.
Yeah.
And yet people do it over and over and over again. And it's because they do it so well. They have just figured everything out. They even know if you lose your car, how to help you find it. If you lock your keys in your car, they have a system for how to get it unlocked for you in 3 minutes or less. So all of these things that like whatever issues can happen, they have a system for how to handle it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's wise to do. When you're in a band scenario too, it's just, that what's going to hit the fans. Let's figure out what's the rules of engagement when it does.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
God, you're so smart.
Oh, thank you. Can I need this recording to like let my husband listen to it later and my children.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have this.
We can play it in the car for them.
Good.
Well, speaking of concerts and customer experiences, when you've been the customer at a concert, what's one of the best concert experiences that you've ever had? And it might be because of the artist or the songs, or it might be just a great venue. It might be the crazy hooligans you were there with. Not saying that that's ever happened, but what's top of your list?
So, okay, the one that really comes to mind was just a few years ago. And I have to admit, I really wasn't a big fan of this person before the concert. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get smacked for sure for this because it's Pink. I know everybody's like, how do you not like Pink? But I guess there was just sort of something about her. I'm like, we get it. You're tough. Like, I know you don't like, I get it. You don't have to be like, I'm a badass, like constantly needing to reaffirm that everywhere you are. So a friend of mine called and said she had free tickets to go. She won them from a radio station. And so I'm like, sure, I'll go. It's a night out away from the kids. I'm game. But the concert was so good. And it was like, I wasn't really a fan of hers, but it was hard not to be. She was just so engaging. And the way that everything was set up, no matter where your seat was, you felt like you were a part of that concert.
Oh, wow.
So you didn't feel like you were getting gypped because you weren't paying, $1,000 for front row.
Right.
Even though I wasn't paying anything, but it was good. And it also had, I think it was just the setup of how she really engaged the audience. And you could tell she had a lot of passion within her performance. And think of how many of those she must do, but she still comes with her A game every time.
Right.
So that's definitely, it stood out. She made me a believer.
Nice. Way to go, Pink.
Yeah.
So what's the best way for people to connect with you and stay up with what's going on, or shoot you a Twitter question like, hey, how do I not kill my bandmate?
Yeah, I am on Twitter about once every 4 days. So I'm obviously really good at it. But absolutely, I can be connected to you on Twitter. It's just at Amy Woodall is my Twitter handle. I'm on LinkedIn.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn and, Instagram and all that fun stuff.
So what's revving your creative engines right now?
Good question. I don't know. I could go so many routes with that. I'm a big podcast. Thanks to Jen, actually. I am a podcast. I am completely obsessed. I listen to, I have to say, Radio Lab, just a little shout out. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I could listen to every single episode and always be thoroughly entertained and learn something that I can steal and go use as my own in my training.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's the value.
Yes. Good stuff.
Cool. Very good. Well, thanks for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation and that you got as much out of it as I did. Here are my big takeaways and action items. Number 1, actions shift our attitudes, and how we act determines how we feel. So this week, I'm on a mission to be more mindful of my actions. The second big takeaway I got was using upfront contracts. It's something that I've been taught before, but like a lot of good things that I should be doing, I've gotten away from it. So I actually need to go back and listen to that part of the conversation again and then start putting those upfront contracts into practice. And the third thing, I'm a true believer in what Amy said about journaling and affirmations. I have a journaling practice and I do it almost daily, but I feel like I need to go back and refine some of my affirmations or make some new ones around the trash floating around in my head. What are your big takeaways and action items? Tweet me at BrassyBroadJen and let me know. And if you got some little nugget of wisdom from this conversation, don't be stingy. Share it with a friend. Now get out in the world and do some good. Oh, and go back and listen to episode 28 with Amy.